What is going on, guys? Today I'm excited to bring you guys another video. I actually made a couple upgrades. For work I was able to get like a webcam and a mic that they gave me just for like general like work stuff, so hopefully it will drastically increase the quality of the videos. And since COVID is starting to kind of die down again and places are starting to open up a little bit, things like that, I thought it would be a good idea to make a video on getting back into Yu-Gi-Oh, as I'm sure a lot of people are going to be getting back into Yu-Gi-Oh around this time and trying to maybe like participate in different tournaments, maybe like go to like locals and like visit some friends they haven't seen in a while, things like that. And so maybe you're a player that hasn't played ever since COVID or even before that, and you want to jump back into Yu-Gi-Oh. This video is just for those people who don't really know like where to start. And so I'm going to give you guys 5 things that'll help you get started or just kind of get back into it if it's just been a long time. But before we start the video, guys, please like and subscribe down below. Helps me out a lot. Helps me put out more content for you guys. And also please comment on any other video ideas you might have for me. I'm really open to just all kinds of different video ideas. Without further ado, let's just get started. The absolute #1 thing I recommend when getting back into Yu-Gi-Oh is definitely setting a budget. The reason why I say this is because it's really easy to just kind of go off the deep end and just spend tons of money on Yu-Gi-Oh. I do it all the time. I'm very victim of not sticking to my budget, and when you do that, you're gonna end up spending a lot more money than you wanted to on cards. So whether your budget is 30 bucks a month, maybe it's 100 bucks a month, maybe you don't really have that much of a budget at all, or maybe it's just like 10 bucks a month, set that budget and stick to it. And that way you're not just dumping a bunch of money into Yu-Gi-Oh! And please remember to always pay like your bills on time first before investing any money into Yu-Gi-Oh! Or looking into pickup cards or anything like that. Make sure that you have like your rent covered, your card payments, etc. Whatever you have, make sure that that's set aside first, and set a budget that's just money that you're just willing to just blow on Yu-Gi-Oh! The #2 thing that I think kind of goes in accordance with #1 is picking up staples. Like I said, this is something that I didn't even do very well in the beginning as well. I mean, I have a few ashes and things like that, a couple imperms, but I think the #1 thing that people miss out on is like they pick a deck that they think that they're gonna like, and they just buy that deck. I mean, this is definitely what I've done several times. I have like 5 different decks I'm working on at the moment, which is terrible. Definitely pick up staples first. So for example, find a couple decks that you're really interested in. Maybe it's Unchained, maybe it's Tri-Brigade, maybe it's Drytrons right now. Whatever you're interested in, find the cards that are staples in those decks and pick up those staples before picking up the decks. Maybe that might even mean that you need to pick up just like a really like low budget deck in the beginning. That's much more worth it to pick up the staples and have that for any other deck you plan on building in the future than to just have a few staple cards that happen to work in like a specific deck. So for example, that could include cards like Ash Blossom, Effect Veiler, Infinite Impermanence, Nibiru, Droll. I definitely recommend Droll and Nibiru first over all the other ones, just because as of right now, how the format is, those are kind of the big like meta stoppers for almost every meta deck out there at the moment, and Ash Blossom as well, just because it literally hits just about every deck. And then maybe after that, if you have the budget for it, you can move on to things like Lightning Storm, Triple Tactics Talent, Forbidden Droplets, things like that, that will just increase your game no matter which deck they're in. And #3, I strongly recommend going to locals or getting involved in the community somehow, whether it be via like a Facebook group or whether it be like just watching people on Twitch and commenting, things like that. Because the more you're involved with the community, the more you'll make friends, the more you'll meet other people who have similar interests as you, and you'll just end up clicking with those people, becoming friends, etc. And then you might even be able to just kind of like get cards for cheaper from other people as well if you guys have built like a strong relationship, things like that. But it also just makes the game so much more enjoyable when you have other friends who have similar interests to you, or like have like similar ideas to you, or even some that have opposing ideas to you, because then you can even like talk about it, kind of determine what you feel like is the correct way to play something or the best way to handle a situation, whatever, just kind of off of talking to other friends. And obviously you can't play Yu-Gi-Oh by yourself, so you might as well make some friends, right? I know like a lot of people might be shy and it's gonna be kind of hard to like go to locals and stuff like that, but if you do have like a local card shop, I just recommend like going to the shop owner, talking to them a little bit, kind of getting some ideas of like when would be a good time to maybe stop by for like a tournament or something. There might be players who are selling cards and stuff like that, and keep in mind there are certain like regulations, and maybe some shops you're not gonna be able to purchase cards like inside the shop or whatever, so definitely follow your shop's rules first of all. But like you can usually get better deals when you buy cards in person, because then that person isn't paying like TCG player fees, they're not paying taxes, they're not paying, you know, whatever, shipping, all that kind of stuff that goes along with selling these cards. So if you're looking for like a specific deck core, you know, like I said, if you join those Facebook groups or whatever, you might be able to find somebody who can sell that to you for a little bit cheaper. Like I know I, for one, love selling cards to people instead, because one, you build a stronger relationship with that person, and two, I like hooking people up with good deals and, you know, getting them happy about giving them, you know, cards for a little bit cheaper. And then also I've saved some money on like selling cards from like seller fees or you know, taxes or whatever. So all that stuff just gives me more of a reason to sell cards to people in person, or even just like trade for other cards, etc., rather than just having to, like, you know, go online and like list the cards and then paying a bunch of fees. Another thing too is definitely setting some money aside for accessories. The worst possible thing you can do is like not buy any accessories at all, like sleeves or deck boxes or whatever, and just have a bunch of stuff like laying around and having it get damaged. So even the money that you do invest in Yu-Gi-Oh, I wouldn't call it investing, but even the money that you do put into Yu-Gi-Oh, you never end up getting back at all. Like, for example, if you play a deck with no sleeves, your cards are gonna get absolutely trashed. Like, they're gonna be irreparable. Like, they're gonna just get totally destroyed, and you're not gonna be able to like resell them or anything like that. So I definitely recommend just investing in like some good sleeves, like maybe like Ultra Pros or something like that. You can get like a 3-pack or like a 2-pack for like less than $10. So that's pretty much all that you really need. Getting a decent deck box, there's a lot of different ones that are out there. There's one like this Ultra Pro Ultimate Guard one. I actually really like this one. It's one of my more favorite ones. It has like a little compartment for like dice and things like that, and it's really easy to just take the cards in and out. Also, none of these are sponsored by anything, by the way, so just straight up off the bat, nothing here is sponsored. And then there's this other one. I guess these are all by Ultra Pro, I think. But this one, like, the top comes off. I'm not a huge fan of this one, just because it does fit more cards, but like trying to close it is kind of a pain. And then also, like, if you close it all the way, it's kind of a bitch to open. So I usually end up just closing it like halfway anyway. And then even like ones like these that you can buy like 10 for like $2 or something like that, or like $5 or whatever it is, they work just fine. I mean, I use this for my dinosaur deck, and, you know, I don't have any problems with it. All my cards are essentially like in near mint condition still. And then maybe something like a nice mat or something like that. Just on this way, you don't damage your cards, and you end up saving yourself a lot of time and a lot of money just by investing in, you know, 30 to 40 bucks and just some decent accessories. Also, mats are like way cheaper than they used to be. If I remember correctly, like when I played back in like 2010 or whatever, mats were like typically, even for like the rubber ones, just like at least like 40 bucks. Now you can pretty much just like Google like any show that like you're interested in. There's gonna be like a mat on it for like 20 bucks, just like on eBay or whatever. So like I said, really easy to just drop like 20 to 40 bucks on some decent accessories that'll last you for a while. And number 5, last but not least, one of the most important things I think you can do is to watch my videos. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, I do have like a playlist that I'll plug up there that actually goes over like a lot of different like summoning mechanics and things like that, and kind of starting Yu-Gi-Oh over from scratch. But the actual number 5 thing that I was going to talk about was asking a lot of questions. Like whenever you watch people play, or even if you're like watching on like Twitch or whatever, just ask as many questions as you need to understand something, because it's much better to ask the questions now and then to understand it than to like later on be like in a tournament setting and then not know that a certain interaction happens a specific way and then losing a match just because you didn't know that interaction. That's happened to me several times. It really sucks, especially if you're like on the verge to making like to topping or to even like winning the tournament. But just know that there is a right and a wrong way to ask questions. Number 1, if you're at like a tournament or whatever, do not ask people questions in the middle of the match. I personally hate this a lot. I've had some times where people like ask me questions in the middle of a match, like you know, regarding like, you know, what's going on in the game, or even just like random questions like that are like not about the match, like just like personal questions. And I really hate that, just because I'm really focused on the game, and time is a really big issue sometimes, and having to kind of take yourself out of that or take some time to answer questions or whatever is definitely not the best time to do that. Not only is timing important, but also it's important how you ask the question. I see a lot of people when they ask questions, even if they're just asking for knowledge, they ask them in the wrong way. What I mean by that is that people will ask, like, so let's just say you were playing a game or whatever, and then after the game is over, your opponent was like, why didn't you just do this? And that's just like a very like invasive question. It makes it sound like you're doubting the person's ability, whereas if you ask the question differently, you ask the same thing but ask it in a way that's just much more friendly. So one way you could ask that question differently would be like, is there a particular reason why you didn't do this way, or activate this, or do this? And so what that does instead is it tells them like, hey, I was watching and I noticed you did this differently. Why did you do it differently? Because when you're in the match, you have a lot of different contexts, a lot of different things going on that like someone from the outside might not be aware of. And so because of that, they're not going to see the types of plays that the person in the match is going to be doing for a particular reason. Like, for example, let's just say that you walked into a match and someone has like a Dragoon on board, and like they don't ever activate the effect to negate, and you're like, why didn't you negate this, or why didn't you negate that? Well, you might not know that earlier in the turn, the opponent used Pot of Prosperity and searched Triple Tactics talent, and they didn't want their Dragoon to get taken. So like there's little context things that happen, you know, during a match that you might not see, or maybe other things that like other information that the player has that you don't have. And so it's totally fine to ask those questions, but just remember that context is a huge thing in Yu-Gi-Oh! And so if you don't have as much context into the match, or if you don't know what the current, you know, if you're not as familiar with like what the current game state is, just ask the question in more of a way that just opens it up to dialogue as opposed to like criticizing. And then now lastly, for those people who have stayed to the end, I'm going to give you one last bonus tip for getting cards half off. No, I'm just kidding. But I will give you a bonus tip if you are looking to save some money on some cards. A couple things are, one, if you do plan on buying like a huge amount of like a specific set, like maybe you want to buy like a case of like the next main set or like a case of like the mega tins or whatever, a lot of places usually have really good deals. Like a lot of like online stores and stuff like that usually have really good deals several months before the actual product comes out. So let's just say you wanted to buy a case of like the newest set that's coming out, or like a side set that's coming out, or like the mega tins or something like that. If you buy it ahead of time, like roughly about 3 or so months, then you are taking kind of a risk, because like a lot of the time the cards have not been announced, but you usually get it for a significantly lower price than if you buy it closer to the time of it being released. So for example, when I bought my case of Blazing Vortex, I actually got it for much cheaper because I bought it around November when the set was coming out in like February. They also had like a Black Friday deal, stuff like that. That's one way to get a like large amount of cards of like releasing sets for a little bit cheaper. Usually I go to stuff like Yu-Gi-Oh! Daily, things like that. There's a couple other websites. And then also the other way is on TCG Player, when you are gonna buy singles, especially if a set that's just coming out, absolutely wait until roughly about 2, 3, 4 days after the product releases, because what usually ends up happening is during pre-sale everything is much more expensive than it's actually going to be, and very, very, very rarely do I ever see a card cheaper in pre-sale than after pre-sale, basically. So like usually if a set releases on Friday, I usually wait till about Monday, Tuesday to pick up my cards from the set. But that's pretty much it. Those are my tips for you guys. If you did like the video, please, like I said before, like and comment down below. Let me know how this video was, if you found it valuable. Also, please subscribe if you feel like you would get a lot of value from my content. Feel free to check out my other videos. You know, like I said, I've got stuff on different ways to kind of get started in Yu-Gi-Oh! Whether it be like learning the basics, learning how to do certain summoning mechanics, things like that. I have deck profiles on, you know, more or less meta decks going on at the time. Some pack openings if you're into that as well. But other than that, that's pretty much it. I'll see you guys on the next one.